Hello and welcome to Skeindeer Knits. My name is Ellie and I am a Norwegian living and knitting in London. And you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram at Skeindeer. And most importantly of all is the Ravelry group Skeindeer Knits, which is the best place of getting any sort of questions answered, any help, joining the knit-alongs that I host. I am a bit of a knit-along addict, in case you didn't know. So there are 2 going on now, give or take 1. I'll get to that. First of all, welcome to this podcast. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you are returning. Thank you so much for coming by again. To everyone, I want to apologize up front again. This is a common running theme as of late, that I am absolutely rubbish with messages. It's kind of reached that point now where my mum's angry with me for not replying to her. It's like it's across the board. So please, nobody be personally offended that I am lousy right now. It's a pretty hectic time, and I need time. I need more time. Why are there only 24 hours a day? So yeah, it's nothing personal if I haven't gotten back to you or if I forgot or something. I like to think I'm doing well, but I always have this nagging voice in my head. It's just like, need to answer that and you're on top of those messages. And like every inbox I have is just full and it's a bit stressful. And that is also the reason why I keep referring people to the group, because if I am a bit late and it's urgent, then there are so many people there that can help you and your question will be seen by other people who may have the same question. So yeah. And I was talking about knit-alongs. Right, I am hosting the year-long knit-along of 2018, where we are aiming to make 6 pairs of colorwork mittens. That is 1 colorwork mitten a month, because there are 12 months a year. Simple maths. And yeah, that is running from the beginning to the end of the year. No whips from before 2018 and no finished objects after. They have to be finished by the end of the year, that's what I'm trying to say. And the other knit-along that I am hosting right now, it's lasted all winter and it's about to wrap up at the end of the month, and that is the Marius knit-along, which is where we're knitting Marius sweaters. That is the Marius pattern right there on that cushion, except we're making sweaters. More on that in the group as well. I have just wrapped up the 1-month-long Break the Rules Cal. It's a series of knit-alongs I wish to do to make people kind of break out of their comfort zones a bit and not adhere to rules so much. And so this first run was to break the rule of yarn weight. So you take a pattern and it says, I don't know, use DK weight yarn, and you go, I'm gonna use fingering, watch me. And yeah, you just don't listen to the recommended yarn weight, and maybe also try to use a bit of yarn and fiber wisdom to see if you don't actually need to change the pattern when you change the yarn weight, because maybe the yarn has properties that allow some flexibility. Like in my patterns, I'll also get back to that, I use anything ranging from sport weight to light fingering for the exact same purpose, and it totally works when you have a yarn that allows for that. And so that was really fun, and I have closed the thread. It seems like most people were on board with it just lasting a month, and that's fine with me, although I'm sad to have ended the conversation because it was really inspiring. However, sadly, I don't have time to do the prize announcement right now. And next week is Edinburgh, so it's going to be a while until I can announce prizes, but I hope and aim and believe I will be able to do it during March, which is pretty good given that is the month coming after when I close the knit-along. So hopefully that's okay with everyone. I have some thoughts about what I'm going to give away, something from what I own, and that will be good. I don't have the time right now. I didn't actually think I was going to be able to record today, but because my flatmate was at home, and nobody's usually at home during working hours, but she's moving, which is probably why she's taking a day off, but she just went out, so I was like, I can record. But I have very limited time, so I didn't have time to draw a winner, decide on prices and all that stuff, so we're just gonna have to put that off for a little bit. Sorry about that, but it will happen. And so I said 3 cals, those were 3 cals, but we closed 1, and I would like to open another one. But first, I would like to announce something very, very exciting. I just published my first garment pattern. So there we are. It's the Blåfjell sweater. So there it is. I am not actually wearing it today. This is something I'm gonna get back to as well, don't worry. There it is. This is what it looks like when I am wearing it, if I were wearing it. But it's quite hot today. I know that sounds bizarre. If anyone's been watching the news and I'm saying it's really hot today, that doesn't make any sense, because last week it was consistently below freezing temperature. That's below 0 Celsius, and that was cold, really, really cold, and the housing and everything in the UK is really not prepared for freezing temperature. So I thought with myself, oh, I'm gonna go to this cafe that I know has live fire, that's gonna be warm. That cafe has live fire because it's a tent, so it was freezing and their pipes had frozen, so they couldn't really serve either coffee or food, because they usually have really nice fresh food. So that's kind of been the situation, but that suddenly stopped and now it's really baking hot again for March. And so yes, not wearing a woolly jumper because this thing is really warm, at least in the yarn I chose. And again, comes back to the stuff I said about yarn. I have used PT2, which has now since been merged with Fenul, so now you can use Fenul PT2, which is, you can get that at the Woolly Thistle, you can get that at the Solda yarn shop, you can get that anywhere in Norway and probably also Sweden. It's available a lot of places, and if you are struggling to get that yarn, you can check out the header thread of my header post of my Norwegian Knitting and Yarn Help Desk. That has a list of places where they sell Norwegian yarns, and some of those yarns are this very yarn. But that's not the only yarn you can use if you wish to knit this sweater. I really like using Holst Super Soft for this. It's a yarn I'm going to be talking about a lot this episode. I did knit it in this, which is what makes this hot. PT2 to Fenul are sport to fingering weight, I want to say. Whereas Holst Super Soft is a light fingering, but the knit up to the same gauge. You get the same stitch gauge and row gauge, at least I do, and it's a lot lighter and less warm, so that's a thing that you can totally do. And I would recommend getting Holst Super Soft from Holst's own website. It's pretty much the cheapest option and they ship worldwide, and I really like them. And there are lots of other recommended yarns as well. You know, you can use your usual 2-ply Shetland yarn, you can use Tiki Wool fingering, which I think would be amazing. You could use Cascade 220 fingering, you could use Knit Pig's palette. So many yarns that you could use. It's literally any woolly, woolen spun, 2-ply, sport to light fingering weight. The world is your oyster, and you have a huge palette to choose from there. I would definitely recommend checking out JC Rennie at Edinburgh Yarn Festival if you're going there. They're going to have a booth, I believe. They had one last year and I believe they're going to be here again. If not, then you can find JC Rennie yarn at Kathy's Knits, right, in Edinburgh City. She doesn't vend at the festival because people come by her shop anyway during the yarn festival, and it's the best yarn shop in Edinburgh in my opinion. I've been to all of them and they're all really, really good. But Kathy's Knits, I love that shop. So that was the yarn of this sweater, in case you were wondering. You can use lots of different yarns as well, like Holst has a cotton wool blend, and I know one of my test knitters used Permine Ester, which is a cotton wool blend, so that's an option as well. And I think it's time to talk about the actual pattern, the format, the composition. So it is a top-down yoke with short row shaping for the back. Now I'm going to show the short row shaping, but I do want to alert you that it has changed because I happen to be knitting the middle size. I have 12 sizes offered, more on that on the pattern page. And for me in the middle size, the short row shaping was just perfect. And it was also pretty good for the larger sizes. But as you went further down, it was looking a little bit baggy and weird. And so I assessed that and I changed the short row. So now they are a lot more consistent across patterns, and they help with dipping the front a little bit more, so it's just been improved from what you see here, and I think it's already pretty good at this stage, so very, very happy with that. And it, yeah, totally raises the neckline at the back to the extent that you need, and because you know how I get hang-ups about when it dips in the back and it's high in the front and I just feel funny and cold in the neck. Totally doesn't do that here. Of course, if you ever wish to modify to not have such a kind of high up neckline, you can just cast on the stitch count that you get after the first increase. I haven't written on the pattern, and that's totally doable and should be fairly easy to figure out. So that's a thing you can do for sure. However, the pattern does have a number of modifications beyond that. So you knit the rib, you do the short rows, you do the yoke, And I have put in the appendix how you can divide for sleeve and body sooner if you wish to. I certainly didn't. I did a bit of stockinette even before I did. But you can do it all the way up to here if you want, but that's a bit of an advanced section, but I included that in case anyone would like to try that. And then you knit the sleeves. They are pretty standard. I have made them a little bit longer since test knitters pretty much consistently said they should be about 2 inches longer, so they all are at this point. And the body you can knit in 4 different ways. I think that's pretty good going. So it's really made for you to fit and adjust to your or the recipient's body. You can knit it full length or cropped. This is the cropped one, and you can knit it waist fitted or not. Mine is waist fitted, so again it's the kind of subtle waist fitting that I have said repeatedly lately that I like. So there's a subtle little seam here, you can hardly tell because it's not really supposed to show, and that just avoids any sort of excessive bagginess of the sweater. It doesn't cling to your waist unless you went for a size smaller than your measurements, and I think that works really nicely and it's flattering and I love it. And as for clinginess, I have said I would recommend this to be worn at about 1 or 2 inches positive ease. That's just because I aim for this to be a rather sort of typical ski jumper, but of course you don't have to do that. You can choose the positive ease that you like, and that's the advantage of a yoke. You can really do you, and that's the main thing I want to show in this pattern, and hopefully I can, and it's very exciting. Can you tell I'm excited? It's been trending on Ravelry since the release yesterday. It's been on top amongst the yoke patterns, amongst the stranded patterns, and now it's on the first page, I think on the second row of overall trending patterns, which is like, oh. So that is very exciting. And I want to tell you a little bit about the objective for this sweater. I already covered some of it, where I want to show you the versatility of rustic yarn. I want to show you how when you make a top-down yoke you can really make it fit your needs by merely improvising it if you wish, or just follow the instructions. That's an option too. But the main goal I have with this sweater is to give you the tools that you need to kind of tackle other Norwegian yoke patterns. A lot of people don't understand how to knit a top-down yoke, and so when they get a Norwegian pattern that's written bottom-up, what do? And if you don't want top-down yoke, it's so intuitive to know how to convert, especially when it's an increase made as part of the little gaps between the patterns. So you can see there are these little subtle stripes in between that are pure stockinette. That's where I hid the increases. So it's actually fairly easy to modify if you wish to have more or less increases as well. But the main thing that you will get if you knit a Norwegian yoke is a pattern that says, it gives you the chart for the yoke with the stitch count at different points, the one you should have before and after, and the different stitches between, and that's your increase or decrease points. Usually decrease because they're usually bottom up, and then you just have to figure out how to do that. And in my pattern, this is probably the most unique kind of selling point of the pattern, if you will, is that I have given you the formula for figuring that out. So essentially you can just use the method that I'm suggesting to find out, okay, you have this stitch count, you need that stitch count, that means adding this stitch count, that's the difference between the two, but they need to be increased evenly. And it's all written in the pattern, and that's going to be I had really good feedback from my test knitters about that formula. I was really nervous about having that type of instructions instead, because I know that internationally more people are used to the sort of Brooklyn tweed type pattern where everything is laid out, and I really want to help the knitter go from that point to being able to take maybe a vintage pattern or a Scandinavian style written pattern and just work it with confidence. And I hope this sweater is gonna do that for you. And so why I mentioned this right after listing all my knit-alongs is, of course, I want to have a knit-along for this sweater. Given the amount of interest there's been for this sweater, I assume that means that people want to knit it as well, and so it makes sense to have a knit-along. Haven't thought about a closing date yet. That sounds just like me, I know. So I think, do we want it to run for 3 months, maybe? 4 months? How long do you need? I reckon a lot of beginners would want to tackle this yoke. I want to say it's a beginner friendly I would say yes. A lot of my test knitters have said yes. I had a minority that says maybe just above beginner level, you know, so not maybe your first thing after having done your first knitted swatch, but if you have been a beginner for a while, you know, then definitely beginner friendly in that sense. And yeah, so I reckon there will be quite a few beginners wanting to do this, so I'd like to have the knit along last for as long as those people would need to finish as well. So I'm thinking 3 months, but I'm open for input on that. But the knit along starts here and now, because there's like no point, there's no way you're gonna have a whip because it's just come out. So more on that in the group. I don't know, there aren't any rules. You just need to finish by the time there's a deadline, essentially, and then you'll have to post in the finished objects thread, which I will be making when we're closer to that date. You kind of get the deal, and well, I think that's all I have to say. I had so many things. Oh no, I'm not done. I had amazing test knitters, and they mostly all finished really fast, and I got a pretty nice shortlist of people that I would definitely ask in the future, and they took amazing photographs. They all used different colors, which was amazing to see, and it was just really rewarding. And what was more fortunate was that some of my test knitters were really techie as well and could give me feedback that was beyond what I had expected, and it really helped with kind of a weird situation I found myself in with regards to that. So I had lots of people help me out with stuff and things that is very difficult when you make a pattern, but I'm very happy to say that I managed to do the vast majority of this myself. The size grading and kind of the maths underneath it, and I've had it checked, it all works, and I'm feeling really proud that I could do that. And now that I've done it, I'm like, grading, no big deal. I need to be a bit better with making my spreadsheets, because right now my spreadsheets are a mess. They totally works, but I could not send my spreadsheet along with the pattern when I needed to have it checked. So yeah, that I need to make tidier spreadsheets so that other people besides myself can use them. I think that would be nice. That's my experience. So thanks to those of you with your amazing braids that have helped me out with this, and thanks to Kristen of Wool and Rhyme Yarns and Yarngasm podcast for the stellar photography that she did for me. I'm just gonna have a slideshow going on here where I'm like trying to be a model or something, feeling slightly awkward, but we managed to select like 4 photos where I don't look super awkward. So thank you, Kristen, that was super awesome. And yeah, it's out. It is out. And of course, guys, I, as ever, have made a discount code for those of you who are purchasing the pattern early on. I have mentioned why I do this before, but I'm happy to repeat that. It is essentially my way of thanking those that immediately leap to my Ravelry store to buy patterns of mine before anyone but my test knitters have tried it out. It's a huge leap of faith, I find, and it's beyond that. Those are the people that have helped get the pattern out there. Those are the people that are now making a trend on Ravelry so that other people find it. People who don't watch the podcast, people who don't follow me on Instagram, and when I can reach those people, thanks to those that put their own money into supporting that, I certainly would like to offer them a discount code upfront as thanks. I think that's just common sense, because it's really a give and take situation there, where I can do this without you guys, and obviously you can do without me making the pattern. So it's all a very nice kind of symbiosis of designing and knitters supporting. So thank you so much. So the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room. I'm not talking about the huge oversized acrylic sweater my mom wore in the 80s. I'm talking about Vertices Unite. This shawl is a garter beast. I went through this so quickly when I was marking exams, because I could just read the scripts while knitting garter and not look at it, and I worked probably 75% of it or so while I was marking, but in the end I had to just really press through the marking and no knitting, and then I was done marking, and then I didn't really feel the garter anymore. But I did quickly speed up again during, it was like the weekend before last weekend or something, and it's done. And I got through the I-cord over the weekend, and yeah, I'm off I-cord Island, and it's done. and I found a way to wear it even though it's asymmetrical, which is like, you know, my arch nemesis, but I've sort of made it work. I'm gonna show you in a bit, but first I'll show you the garter beast. So the first thing I noticed after giving it a good soak and letting it dry out on my floor, no pinning required, because remember the fade beast that I knitted way above gauge, and once that had been pinned and stretched, it was huge. And you'd think I'd learn from that, but this thing is also huge. It's ginormous, but less so than the fade I made. This is the size that fade shawl should have been had I knit to gauge. Hindsight, but yes, there is just something with this single ply merino, superwash merino, that just spreads itself to the world, you know. It just opens up the garter and everything once you give it a good soak and dry. I'm not even gonna call it blocking. I guess it is blocking. It just, yeah, it opens up. It becomes, I don't want to say, like 25% bigger. It really truly does grow. So while I could wear it sort of bandana style before, after the blocking procedure, less so. So I'm just gonna show you the sections. Here we are. So this beautiful section here is the first one that I made, and I was like, this is big enough to be a shawl on its own, and that's really true. I could have just made this section and it would have been plenty for one shawl. Oh well. And then I got on to this section, which is also striped. It's just more subtle. It's a more yellow gold and orange gold stripe together. I really love the subtleness of it. And then we got onto this beast, and this was where I was almost losing the will to keep knitting this thing, because it's just a whole big rectangle of red, but luckily it is the best shade of red in the world, so it's fine. And then I got to be rewarded with this little section up here, which is so quick. It's using the same orange that was down here, and so this was the point where we were starting to reuse the colors used previously. So here you're seeing the gold, the more yellow gold that is not used here, it's used here, along with the gold speckled beige that I used here. It's coming back here. And then I used the brown that is also used here, back here, and that was the last section. When I lastly took this orange that was used here, and also in the second stripy section here, as the I-cord, all the way around, all the way. And it's not too tight and it's not too loose, and I'm very proud of that because it was my first attempt, and that's not usually how it goes for me in I-cords. So how do I wear it? Well, first we find the center point. That is not the center point because this is asymmetrical, sadly, but watch me, I made it work. Wear it like this, right? It's in the center. And where I like to have them quite snug around my neck because I'm Norwegian and we freeze up there. This thing is hanging here, so we take this thing, take it one round more, and then we have this thing, which we can then use to make a knot. I know this is probably how everyone survives their asymmetrical shawls, and I'm just very late to the party, but you know what? Happy to be at the party regardless. So there we are. That is my Vertices Unite, and I absolutely love it. And yes, it is completely 100% made in La Bien Ami, French. Amy said that it's fine to just call her Amy, so it's fine, I'm just gonna do that. And yes, it's made in her yarn, completely single ply merino, in a just amazing range of autumnal colors that she does. And I bought the majority of these yarns at the Pom Pom Christmas party of 2016. And then I think the gold speckled beige here I got at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. I got another two skeins there as well, and I've got one from Vogue Knitting Live in New York. So I do have another 3 skeins of hers that could be something, and I do have scraps and bits and bobs left from this shawl, so there is some potential of something awesome there. I just don't know what yet. But it's lovely, it's truly lovely, and I look forward to being able to bring this for Edinburgh Yarn Festival, where I know I can find both La Bien Ami and Stephen West. This is a Stephen West design, if I didn't say that. Vertices Unite is one of the shawls you can find in the West Knits Best Knits one, the one that has all the shawls in it. And it's something I have wanted to make for quite some time because it's been a very popular shawl among the knitters at the Loop Knit Night. And I may not have been convinced to knit it if I'd just seen the photos online. There's something with this shawl when you see it in real life all the different colors and stripy sections and everything, and how it changes from having it all kind of flashed out when it's balled around your neck. And this is the selling point for me, when I can wear it this way and it's just autumnal goodness, which is totally what you need when you approach spring. Oh well. Finished object, a huge finished object. So I'm still on the quest for clearing my needles. It's been something I've aimed to do for quite some time, but I seem to still be stuck around 20, and the reason why is because I've done a couple of cast-ons. But before we get into the latest cast-on, I'm going to get into a cast-on I did just before, which was the Klukka dress. Now I'm gonna try to be very careful, because this is unspun Icelandic wool. I'm not gonna call it yarn, it's wool. It's pencil roving, a very thin kind of roving. It's, yeah, not spun, not plied, nothing, just wool. And they come in these cakes, and I'm knitting from the center out, which is why it's more like a donut right now. And so it's like donut lopi. And the dress has, since we saw each other, become a skirt. So here we are. Look at that. And when I put it on, I'm like, it could just be a skirt though. Why do I need to finish it and make it a dress? But then I'm like, if I'm going to be so cold that I would like to wear this skirt, I'd be rather foolish to not have it as a dress, because I'm going to be cold all the way up my back as well. So it will be a dress, I think. I think I've landed on that. Because this thing is warm. It's really been the main reason I'm still alive after the Beast from the East. Because this pattern was sat on my lap while I was knitting on it, and yes, binge watching Outlander, because I'm utterly obsessed and now utterly devastated that I went through the only 3 seasons that exist in no time at all. Why did I do that? Why didn't I just savor it? And I realized from my comment section that I'm not the only one who's completely hooked, so it's good to not be alone in that obsession. But I guess I'll have to just kind of slowly now go through the books while there's this 4th season. And I have these, I'm going to talk about this in a bit, don't worry. Tangent, we do this here. I have this idea that I want to read the books after I see the seasons. I know that sounds crazy, but it's something I learned from Harry Potter actually. I did read the first 2 books, but then I was just kind of fell off and I was like, oh, they seem to be all the same stuff. Little did I know that the 3rd book was going to be stellar. So I ended up actually watching the films first, and what happened was, as I'd watched the films, I then wanted to read the books, and then the books felt like supplements to the films. It was like I'd gotten so much awesomeness and amazing imagery from those films by having actually seen the images. And reading the books was just adding to the story, learning about all the other stuff that went on, you know, the Tom Riddle background story, for instance. I just felt like it was adding more to the stuff that was already awesome, and this is probably how I feel about the Outlander stuff as well. If I first watch the show, then I can read the books and get even more. You know, I'm not gonna do the other order where I'm reading the books and really loving them, and then watch the show. I'm like, it wasn't like that though, you know, because we all do that. We do. So back to the dress. Yes, this is a pattern designed by Védís Jónsdóttir from Iceland. She designs from Istex, which is the company that makes the lopi yarns, you know, Let Lopi, Alafos Lopi, and Plötu Lopi, and Einband, and a bunch of other yarns. And I'm making the Klukka dress that she designed. It's from Knitting with Icelandic Wool. This is the cover of the English version. They may have changed it since. I feel like they should have, because it's kind of ugly. And the Norwegian and Icelandic version is so much prettier. But it's the same content, and the content is amazing because it's full on Icelandic sweaters, mainly yokes, but a couple of other things as well. It comes with a delightful history section at first. I don't remember it because it's been a while since I bought this book, but that section is really only this far, and the rest of this is all patterns like this one. This is the Aftur sweater. I do believe this is the sweater that Kamibornia is having a knit along for right now in collaboration with Järbo of Sweden. And yeah, this book is so awesome. I've had it for years and I am still not tired of it whatsoever. I made 2 things from it, but it has resulted in 4 projects, so there you are. So I think we're gonna make this into a dress. It's getting a bit too warm to wear it now, but I'm just one of those people that get freezing at random because I'm a bit odd that way. So I think I'll still get used for it whenever I do choose to finish. And I just kind of got fed up with all the rib. I have 1 centimeter left out of 10. I know, I just need to press on, do the back and the front, and then I'm done. And it's a dress in very, very prickly yarn. But I'm very confident that this is going to soften up with wash and wear, because that's just what Icelandic wool is. It doesn't turn into cashmere by no means, but it does soften up a lot from this particular format. Did I just break the yarn? I did. This is the downside with this. It breaks so easily. So now these are no longer connected anymore. Oops. But that just means that it's just as easy to connect again. You just kind of rub it together, maybe add a bit of spit or water or what have you, but it's really easy to connect back. So I'm not going to fret about it. It's just a little bit, I don't know, an obstacle. So I have 2 cheeky cast-ons now, well arguably 3 judging by that thing over there, but we're not going to talk about that thing. We're going to talk about this cast-on, because I finally gotten around to knit the Maja's Mamelukke. So this is bloomers, knitted underpants. Bloomer sounds a lot nicer, so I'm going to stick to that. I think I am knitting this in Ask by Hillesvåg. It's one of my favorite yarns. Totally perfect for the Blåfjell sweater if you should wish to try that. There is a Norwegian based kind of shop in the UK. They're called, I think, Norwegian Fiber or something like that. Just Google it. They used to sell Hillesvåg yarn by the skein, but now they sell them by 500 grams, which could still be good enough for you to get this. Just letting you know where you can get yarn, because I get asked this a lot, even though I usually don't have to consider that because I go buy my yarn when I'm in Norway. Tangent. This is another one of those episodes, isn't it? In Trondheim I got this yarn from Litt av Hvert, which is up in Risvollan, and they have lots of Hillesvåg there. Of course you can use Finul as well, that's a pretty equivalent yarn. And yes, I'm knitting this in black. This black 2x2 rib for 20 centimeters. That is, what's that, 8 inches? It's gonna take a while, and I got 2 inches down, so about quarter way through. And this is supposed to be my waist. My waist is not this small. This is a 60 centimeter needle, and my waist is not 60. So yeah, the rib is said to be very elastic, and I didn't measure how far I could stretch the stitches apart while they were still on the cable when I was on my first round, and it should measure stretched out 180 centimeter if I done my maths right. My waist is not 180, my hip is not even 180, so it's totally gonna go on and be fine. I'm not gonna have any problems with it, and it's gonna be nice and elastic and exactly what I want. So yeah, I have 180 stitches on the needles, but actually it's made to have 160. But I did a bit of maths to figure out how my measurements is a tad bit wider than the designer who made it for herself, and it's a 1 size bloomer, but very straightforward to modify. She's given some nice instructions on the Yadbo blog, which is where you can find the pattern for free, which is why I can allow myself to give you the stitch count. Very, very intrigued to see how you shape this thing. I suspect it has a lot of purling in it. It seems to be very short row based, a lot of back and forth. Yeah, I'm intrigued. We'll see how that happens. And I am knitting this in 2 different contexts. Well, 3 contexts if you just count the fact that I get a bit cold from time to time, even on that particular area. However, Ninja Chickens is having a knit your undergarments cal, I think it's called. Forgive me if I'm not paraphrasing that correctly, but yeah, she's got a knit along for knitting your undergarments. So it can be bloomers or shorts or what have you. It could also be a skirt, so I guess I could qualify my krykke as well. I don't know. But yes, this is definitely a qualifier because Maria is knitting this herself as well. And I believe she's going to shop for that yarn at Edinburgh, and I am very excited to meet her there. And I am totally joining that knit along, and I encourage everyone who would try to knit something a bit different to do the same. This pattern has been translated into a lot of languages. There are links to that on the Maja's Mamelukke pattern page on Ravelry. I don't know what I'm talking about, strange today. And so yeah, you can find out everything about that there. The third, arguably second reason I am making this is part of the Mamelukkeropprøret. So that's a, I don't know how to translate that. It's like a rebel against the rip-off of this pattern, because someone who is quite big and prominent in the knitting pattern design industry, the big company, ripped off this design. They had published something that looked nearly identical. Not sure how identical, because I got too angry to actually read through everything in detail. I was just like, you cannot. And lots of people got outraged by this. It's been a huge kerfuffle on Instagram and Ravelry. It hasn't resulted in anything, because there's really very little that protects a knitting designer from having their patterns visually ripped off. And what's more is that this big company is deleting comments on their pattern page that points out that this is in fact a rip-off. So I am now knitting this in support of the designer who had this idea first, and yeah, my sympathies and support goes straight into this pair of bloomers that I'm gonna wear. And that's, I don't know, it's not like the best way to be in a rebel, to knit yourself underpants. There's something about the idea I just love. So I don't know when to finish this, because I am now looking for some very simple knits to bring along to Edinburgh, which I am going to in a week. Today is Monday and I'm going on Tuesday next week. So anything that is fairly simple to knit while I can still be fairly sociable, to the extent that I am social, is very welcome. So that's the story behind the other whip that I'm going to show you as well. So here we are. I have cast on the Fern and Feather by the amazing, wonderful, truly fantastic Jennifer Steinglass, who has truly taken over the colorwork yoke world. And you can imagine how giddy with excitement I was when my pattern was trending among colorwork yoke patterns, and I see it surrounded by these marvelous Jennifer Steinglass patterns. I feel very honored for like temporarily being in that company, truly, because this has been a joy to knit. The pattern is great. I really like this. The only thing I have chosen to modify yet, and that's saying something, now this is the only thing, I did a provisional cast on for the neckline. So there are two necklines. There's one that's slightly narrow and one that's slightly wide, but they both are just rollover necklines. They are not ribbed or anything, and I do prefer it to be of some texture, whether rib or otherwise. And so because I couldn't really make up my mind, I just wanted to knit it, I did a provisional cast on so that I can later pick up these stitches and knit it up. And it's probably just going to be good old 2x2 rib or something, 1x1 maybe 1x1 twisted. And yes, it needs to be a lot less for me. This is the wider neckline, mind you, but still I need it to be less than what it is right now. But the other reason I am very happy to have done this is because this pattern has a lot of very interesting short row shaping at the back. So you'll see here, this is the front. It's about as long as that is. But when you look at the back, it's a great deal longer, because there is short row shaping both before and after the sleeve and body divide, which I think is very interesting, and I would like to see how that turns out before I consider incorporating any short row shaping to the back top of the yoke, because maybe that's not necessary in this case, given there's all this shaping below that will also push up the neckline at the back. That's the theory anyway. I am making this sweater rather big. It's a tad bit over my measurements as recommended in the pattern, and because I have as of late gotten more fond of the idea of having something a bit oversized and snuggly, so that's what I'm doing. Now I have gotten just beyond the sleeve and body divide. I believe I just finished the second short row shaping for the back, and it's all stockinette from here, which is why I cast this on, because I just needed something basic stockinette to knit at Edinburgh, but still kind of, you know, shows my what I'm known for, the colour work. So it has a bit of personality to it as well, which I guess the rib of the Mameluke right now doesn't so much, because I don't really like rib. Which is probably why I put it off in the neckline in the first place. Oh well. So I'm sure you're very curious, what is this yarn? Let's have a close-up for this. It looks a little bit loose. I'm sure this is gonna look lovely when I block it. Do you know why? Yes, that's right. This is our good old friend Holst Super Soft. I'm holding it double. So if you can see on the floats at the back here, on the inside I should say, every float is a double strand. Everything is a double strand. Yes, that's right. Because that's the beauty of Holst, and this is the reason why I wonder why I have this stash, because you can really knit everything but socks in Holst Super Soft. They do have their own sock yarn actually, so you can pretty much be covered by their shop entirely, which is great if you're on a budget, believe me. And yes, it can be held double. That was the point of that little rant. If you hold it double, you can get a gauge at, I am getting a gauge of 18 stitches per 10 centimeters, which is what the pattern recommends. I'm sure 20 would be really nice as well. I want to say 20, give or take 2 stitches. That's the, I don't know, you could do looser than 18 as well, I reckon. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe color works. I don't know. You just have to try it out and see if someone else has done it on Ravelry before you. That's usually what I use Ravelry for, to see, has someone done this? Am I brave enough to do this? Has someone tried it? Yes, someone did. Okay, I'm gonna do that thing. And yeah, it's looking really nice. I'm actually loving how the yarn feels, which is new for me, because usually Holst feels rather rubbish. Once it's held double, you can sort of get a sense of the body of the yarn a little bit. But this is gonna look fabulous once it's been given a good wash and gotten all that spinning oil off. So if you're new to this podcast, you may not know this, but I've had long conversations about this type of yarn, Holst in particular, that is soaked with spinning oil. It looks really thin and weird, and when it's up it looks kind of gappy and see-through. Can you see me through? I can see you through here. And it's not very nice. It's a bit linen-like. As soon as you wash it, however, it blooms. It's the bloom effect of Holst and yeah, other yarns that are similar, like JC Rennie. And it's just so rewarding after having knitted something that you think, oh, this is okay, it's a bit stiff, it's a bit so see-through, and then you wash it and it's just, oh, I made this wonderful thing that's so soft and woolly and light, and oh. So that's kind of why I am raving about this so much, because yeah, it's quite the process. You can see now actually how see-through it is, sort of. That's just gonna go away when I wash it, and I'm very excited about that, and I'm excited to see it happen in a looser weight, a looser gauge project than my flea cardigan, which was the other cardigan I've, or garment I've done in this yarn that I have finished. There's a lot of unfinished stuff, but that's another story. So yeah, I'll just be tagging along to Edinburgh with some Holst cakes, and I think that's a really good idea for bringing projects as well. If you bring Holst yarn, you have something that doesn't take up much space, which will leave a lot of space in your bags for other yarns that you may come home with. So that's kind of my verdict on that, I think. So yeah, there's all stockinette left now, both in the sleeves and the body, which, like I said, will allow me to be a tad bit more social when I am knitting this with all the knitters at Edinburgh Yarn Festival and all the stuff I'm going to take part in there. I am taking part in pretty much everything but the Kaylee. So there, you can expect to find me most places. Yeah, maybe we should have a bit of a conversation about IRL Ellie, so Ellie out in the wild. I think I weird people out a bit. I obviously talk a lot less in real life than I do on the podcast, because this is a monologue. You know, here it's just me. In the real world I have to, you know, converse with other people, let other people talk, and that's not usually a problem, because I am rather quiet and odd, and everybody says that. Everyone who's on the internet says, oh, in real life I'm so weird, I'm so strange, because it's like the coolest thing in the world to be strange. I'm telling you, I'm one of those people that are strange to the point that people kind of go, you know. And I think also the kind of unfortunate effect, I'm not sure how I do this, but I've come to realize as of late that I have this effect that I make people feel like I don't want to talk to them, and I'm not sure how or why. I don't know what it is. I remember when I was back in Norway, and I was meeting the guy who was dealing with my nan's funeral. He kept saying things like, oh, don't worry, I'm gonna leave now, to me, and stuff like that. Like he was clearly getting from me that I didn't want him to be there. It wasn't true, and I didn't think I did anything to signal that. I don't know. And the same thing when I was meeting my cousin's boyfriend for the first time, she's just moved in with, and I like kept giving him the vibe that I didn't want to, I don't know, talk to him or sit next to him or whatever. It was like, no, I don't know why I do this. And yeah, I've had that with people I've met at the art festivals as well, and I don't know what that is. Where maybe it's just because my gaze tends to go all over the place, because I've taken everything in my surroundings around me, and I'm kind of a bit of a, this isn't my room, it's all very different. I don't know. So yeah, I just kind of want to give people a bit of a warning that maybe I'm not, you know, all chatty and as you may expect. That's just good to know. Now I'm gonna be super nervous that I'm gonna be under the scrutiny of everyone who I meet. I just want you to know that I really do appreciate meeting everyone, and even if I seem like very timid, that's just me. That's just me. I just have my personality quirks. Nothing to do with anything or anyone, just that's how I roll. Yeah, we're gonna have fun. It will be good. And now we're getting to the point where I am overheating, because this is just how it is when I record. And we get to look at this wonderful shawl once more and just be like, this is so pretty, the colours, la bien aimé, which you can find at Edinburgh Yarn Festival. Though if there's one booth that does not need my recommendations, it's la bien aimé, because that booth is gonna be packed like last year, I'm sure. I mean, look at this yarn. This is ridiculous, it's so pretty. Anyway, it's warm. There's a lot of garter in that, layers and layers of garter. I don't usually find superwash merinos to be as warming as other wools, but when I had that beast on my lap when I was knitting it, I was warm. So the last thing that I now have for this episode is a little bit of a review, which is highly relevant to Edinburgh Yarn Festival, because I was given the shade card and yarn samples of the new Jacob yarn by Blacker Yarns. And I did mention this when I got it in my kind of acquisition section, which notice there is no acquisition section for this episode. I know. 1 week I've been good, 1 week. It feels pretty good actually. I'm not having any abstinences or relapse tendencies or anything. I feel pretty like I'm coping. I feel pretty good. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to review this yarn. That's kind of the deal when you get to be part of the Blacker Yarns podcast lounge. They will send you a bit of yarn, you sort of you talk about it. And they have totally sent this to the right person. I always feel a little bit of, Blacker Yarns is sending out yarn for giveaways and reviews for other podcasters, and I don't get it. And I love Blacker Yarns. I want Blacker Yarns. And so finally they have taken the chance to send me yarn, even though I have like honesty compulsions that I can't really control myself sometimes. I just say how it is when I review things, and that's probably what's going to happen here as well, because this is, as usual, a totally unprepared review, because that's usually when what I feel about something comes out, and comes out reasonably right. So this is their shade card. You can find that on their website, and it displays all their colours and all their weights. However, I am struggling a little bit to interpret this shade card, because one way you could see it is they have 4-ply, which exists in these colours, and they have DK, which exists in these colours, and these exist in both 4-ply and DK. That's how I interpreted it, but it could just be that they have 4-ply and DK and they exist in these colours. I'm not entirely sure. I think the latter would be better, but I believe the former might be the case, because otherwise why would they say that this is both 4-ply and DK, unless these are mixed here. I'm not sure. But they are amazing colours. It's just a range of bottle greens and burgundy plum colours. So it's right up my alley, in case you couldn't tell from all the bottle greens and burgundies in my stash and in my projects. So I really love Blacker Yarns. As I've said before, I have made my Siri cardigan in Blacker Yarns, which I look forward to sporting at the festival, to take part in the Blacker Yarns knit along for Edinburgh Yarn Festival that is hosted by Blacker Yarns and Knit British podcast. And well, I used colours that were very similar to this, and I'm very glad that they're now doing this Jacob yarn, because the Cornish tin yarn that I used for my cardigan doesn't exist anymore. However, this is rather similar in colour, and maybe there was a percentage of Jacob yarn in the Cornish tin actually, so it may have some shared properties as well. And yes, so I think we have covered the shade card at length. I do have to say I find it hard to distinguish between the DK and the 4-ply. I literally have to count the plies to see it, because they are, I want to say the DK is fairly light and the 4-ply is fairly heavy, so they do kind of neighbour each other in a way. However, I really like the two categories of yarn weights that Blacker Yarns have, because they really mirror the two categories of yarn weights that you often get in Norway. You know, there's Tretro Strikkegard and Finull for Rauma. That's a heavier and lighter weight. There is Embla and Ask from Hillesvåg. That's a kind of a DK and a fingering weight. And there's Per Gynt and Tove of Sandnes. You really do get this in pretty much all of the Norwegian yarns. And you get the same thing with the Susan Crawford yarns as well. You know, she's got her Excelana DK and her Excelana 4-ply, which is made by John Aben. So again, it's sort of a dichotomy that makes a lot of sense to me as a knitter, and the kind of yarn weight system that I operate by sometimes, where it's 2-ply and 3-ply, and that is kind of how Lucky Yarns have their yarns as well, and that makes it very usable for me and the types of patterns that I like to knit, and would definitely recommend using Lucky Yarns as substitutes for Norwegian classical patterns. But let's more specifically talk about the Jacob yarn. I was sent these 2 scrap balls. I believe they are both, they're 4-ply, which means that they have 2 plies, because that's how ambiguous the word 4-ply is. It doesn't actually refer to the number of plies, it refers to the weight. And there are 2 shades of bottle green here, one that's lighter, one that is darker. Can you see which is which? I take it that you can. And I have done a little mini swatch. It's still attached because I'm so fond of this yarn. Couldn't really break the yarn and risk having a bit less of it. But I will be buying more of this at Edinburgh, I think, because I really love it. So let's talk about my swatch. I have a bit of a funny way to do my swatches. I like to do them in a diamond shape, but this time I just did half of it, so it's more like a bunting piece. I actually learned this when I was knitting the Hansel Hap by Gudrun Johnston, and I was swatching for that, and I decided to swatch it the way you knit it, and then I realized this is a great way of swatching, because you save so much yarn and you get that width of stitches you need in the end. There's a little bit less stuff to sample when you are measuring gauge at different points in the swatch. So it's a bit more for an emergency swatch, which this was, because this is the only time I can record before EYF. I may have time next Monday, but it seems a bit of a risk, because when am I going to have time to edit and upload, given I'm going out on Tuesday? It's probably not going to happen. So I think we'll see each other after Edinburgh, which is why I had to do this now. And I got this emergency swatch done, and you can see it both in stockinette and garter. There's garter on top here, both of which feels very, very nice. I have to say I'm biased towards the stockinette. In this gauge, definitely stockinette. If you were going to do garter, I do it for a shawl and definitely have a lot looser gauge. So bigger needles, even though it's a 4-ply, this is the 4-ply. I use 3.75mm needles. That is probably what's the equivalent of the average knitter's 3.25 or something. It's a gauge for about 26 to 28 stitches per 10 centimeters. And it gives a very, very nice fabric, truly. It's a gauge that I know Kate Davis operates by a lot, and I know Rauma writes their patterns for Finul very, very often in this particular gauge, and it's definitely a good substitute. I have to say this yarn comes very close to Finul in many ways, but it's a bit lustrous in a way. It has more sheen to it. It must be a slightly longer staple, but it's definitely in that kind of category of yarns that I truly love, and with this watch that definitely confirms that. It feels very nice, and yes, I think this is next to skin friendly. I can understand why not everyone would feel that way. It's definitely on the borderline, but I would definitely wear this next to all my sensitive areas, like this area here. I'm really hot right now and I'm not bothered. We'll see how it works long term. I would really love having this next to skin. If it's cold enough for me to wear this as a shawl, it's, yeah, definitely next to skin friendly. So this yarn is no problem whatsoever. I'd make anything in this but socks, really. Definitely good as a garment. Oh, that would be nice. Garment or shawl. I think that's where I'm at. Also nice like hand accessories. Definitely colorwork mittens for sure. It can be a bit hard to work out the colors you'd want. I would pair any of these with that. So I wouldn't cross here because these are a bit too same in terms of their saturation. Maybe from here to here, but I think if you like those colors together, you know, but you want to be careful about the saturation there. So that's my verdict, really. I really love this yarn. I have nothing bad to say about it whatsoever. It is exactly what I want yarn to be, and they, like I said, have totally sent this to the right person. I'm very glad to be just able to endorse it, and yeah, so that wraps up my review, and I actually don't have anything else to talk about other than go on and on and on about how excited I am about Edinburgh. And I realized I've talked a lot about Edinburgh as if everyone's going. Of course, I understand that of everyone watching this podcast, that's obviously not going to be the case. But I will try my best to document what is appropriate to document when I'm at EYF. We have, you know, been given strict instructions to not shove cameras up in people's faces, and that is something that I totally hear. I feel very kind of weird when I walk about with my camera, and I have been told off once even though I thought that was pretty uncalled for because I wasn't really up in anyone's face. But that is something I try to be very, very, very mindful of. So I'll be vlogging what's appropriate. I try to be consistent. I have never really been as of right now, so you know this is a bit of a risky promise to make, but that is my goal. I hope to be able to show you EYF, both the booths, the podcast lounge, where you can just sit and chill, and Edinburgh in general. And I am so excited. And again, before I wrap this up, I really want to thank everyone who has helped me with this pattern, and especially those who have helped me put it out there now by supporting it, by going on Ravelry and getting it, because you can't imagine what that means to me. Thank you so much. It's so exciting to just sit by my computer and see how well that pattern is doing, and have people talk to me about, you know, they're choosing the yarns now, and oh god, it's so exciting. So yeah, I mean, have your project pages made and let me see what you are planning to do. I am very, very excited. You do a little snapshot of the yarn that you plan to use. You can put that as your project photo, and I'd love to go through that on Ravelry and see what's about to happen. I realize it takes a while to knit a sweater, although my test knitters were also very quick. That makes me feel very confident that this is a very quick knit, despite it being a sport to fingering weight. So yeah, I really want to encourage that. Make your project pages and show me the yarn you want to use, and you can post that in the thread I have. There will be 2 threads up on Ravelry. I believe there will be one for the pattern in general, but there will be one specifically for this knit along, where you can just chat about this. And yeah, very, very excited, if you can't tell, and I think it's time to wrap this up. So I will talk to you guys either at Edinburgh or after. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.